This is the air I breathe. This is the air I breathe. Your holy presence working in me. This is my daily bread. This is my daily bread. Your very word spoken to me, and
Greetings, my friends. Greetings, 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 siblings and friends. What a wonderful day for us to gather together for a time of celebration and sharing and dreaming together as we prepare to do what we believe is going to be a life-changing experience. If you don't know who I am, I'm Brendan Boone. I'm coming to you from Daytona Beach, Florida, USA, where it's a nice 83 degrees today. So I'm sending some of that warmth your way, and I am happy to serve as your MC for this afternoon. We have a full program prepared for everybody, and we have all been touched and blessed and moved in really deep ways in planning this. And so we hope and pray that that will be the same thing for you. There are 3 segments, and we'll slowly move through each of the segments, and they will build on the other. And the hope is by the time we get to the end of this presentation, you will have whetted your appetite to become more involved in PAD, the next generation. We welcome you. I want to remind you there is a chat room available. Feel free to use that. We're also inviting you to share your stories that you would like to share with us of your experiences in PAD. And we also want to ask that you respectfully request the atmosphere that we're trying to set here as we move through the program today. Again, we welcome you to PAD, the next generation ritual ceremony. Let's start remembering together.
And recognizing that this is a mixed crowd, it's a mixed bag, I think it's important that all of us who are here, because we have a relationship with Brian, that we understand not only the wonderful place from which he has come, but that we also understand the wonderful place in which he finds himself today. So I'm going to bore you with a little bit about metropolitan community churches and remind us all once again, and especially perhaps you, Brian, that this is not any of the churches from which you have come. And it is a good thing that it is not. And it never will be like any of the places in which any of us have come. In metropolitan community churches, we believe certain things. We believe, for instance that even in our humanness, that we are holy, that we're liberated from other people's definitions of who we are, that we are beautifully made both body and spirit. We believe that our sexuality is a holy gift from God, and so we no longer distance our bodies from our experience with God. We are a people that proudly participates in the communion of body and spirit. We believe that Jesus led the way for us in acts of compassion and acts of justice. Because we have been a people in the margins of society, we understand fully the grace that God has extended to us. And so we intentionally seek to distance ourselves from exclusion. And we intentionally draw ourselves closer to including all those who are marginalized in any way. So we stand boldly with those who resist the structures of exclusion as Jesus did. And we work to ensure freedom not only for ourselves, but for all people. We know that in the margins, we're blessed. At MCC, we come as we are, warts and all, to Christ. And we are changed by what we find when we get there. We experience a God with open arms, inviting all to take the sacred journey of faith and transformation. And so we are growing in our faith, and we claim our place in society that has magnified our place in God's family. We know that our ultimate ministry is in the world. We know that in order to prepare ourselves for radical service that changes lives, we must equip ourselves and equip others in the safety of a supported community. And so we strive to live a message that rejects the idea that any are excluded from the family of God. All of us at MCC, including even our clergy, have experienced the soul destruction that comes from being the victim of hate-filled rhetoric. In restoring our souls, we have come to find that our voices can speak the liberation that comes through peace and compassion, love, respect, and grace. As followers of Jesus, we believe in everyone's holy privilege to work out their own salvation. While we are a Christian church that follows Jesus, we respect those of other faith traditions, and we work together with them to free all those who are oppressed by hate, disregard, and violence. And just as Jesus did, all of us at MCC are called to do justice, to show kindness, and to live humbly with God. To explore life's questions with open hearts and open minds. To raise our voices against exclusion and to reach, not just reach out, to those who have no hope.
Where is she? Come on back, peaceful. Whoa, easy now.
I'm gonna be free or die.
I've been walking with my face turned to the sun. weight on my shoulders, a bullet in my gun. Oh, I got eyes in the back of my head, just in case I have to run. I do what I can when I can, while I can for my people. While the clouds roll back and the stars fill the night, that's when I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home, far across the river. Can you hear freedom calling, calling me to answer? Gonna keep on keeping on. I can feel it in my bones.
You have made it 100 miles to freedom. Would you like to pick a new name to mark your freedom?
Parrotum.
Early in the morning, before the sun begins to shine, we're gonna start moving towards that separating line. I'm wading through muddy waters. You know I got a made up mind, and I don't mind if I lose any blood on the way to salvation. And I'll fight with the strength that I got until I die. So I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home, far across the river. Can you hear freedom calling, calling me to answer? Gonna keep on keeping on.
Harriet, welcome to the Underground Railroad.
And I know what's around the bend might be hard to face 'cause I'm alone, and I just might fail, but Lord knows I'll try. Shine stars fit up the sky. Stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home, far across the river. Can you hear freedom calling, calling me to answer? Gonna keep on keeping on. I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home, far across the river. Do you hear freedom calling, calling me to answer? Gonna keep on keeping on. I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home, far across the river. I hear freedom calling, calling me to answer. Gonna keep on keeping on. I can feel it in my bones. I go to prepare a place for you. I go to prepare a place for you. I go to prepare a place for you. I go. Oh, I got eyes in the back of my head, just in case I have to run. I do what I can when I can, while I can for my people. While the clouds roll back and the stars fill the night, That's when I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home, far across the river.
Thanks be to God. Pray with me. God of our weary years, God of our silent tears, thou who hast brought us thus far on the way, thou who hast by thy might led us into this light, keep us forever in the path we pray. Holy One, you are so good all the time, and we are blessed to be in you and have you in us. Thank you for this ceremony, for the reaching back, for the embracing of the now, and the encouragement of embracing the future. We are so grateful. We thank you for all who have taken a part in bringing this to fruition. And as we live in this moment, remembering, honoring, and looking ahead, may your spirit ever guide. In the name of Jesus and in all your holy names we pray. Amen. Ashe. And so it is.
As we prepare for the pouring of libations, we want to thank each and every one of you for coming and joining us today for the PAD Next Generation Ritual Ceremony. We are grateful and thankful that each of you is here. And we look forward to all that unfolds during this time of fellowship, of growing, of sharing. We thank you that you've taken time out of your day to be with us. Blessings.
We now invite you to consider your ancestors as we pour libations and invite witness to this ritual celebration. We first give thanks to the earth and honor the earth for our life and for our nurturing. We call upon all of those who have passed on to the eternal, to the ancestors who suffered and traveled to this country from the motherland to give us wisdom, to give us strength, to give us courage. And we say Ashe. To all of those who were brave enough to surrender their lives in the Middle Passage, we call up your memory and we thank you for your love and for the strength that we have from you. And we say Ashe. I invite you all to think on your ancestors, the ones who've taught you, the ones that brought you, the ones that labored to fill you with truth, love, and with pride. And we say, Ashe. To the elders of our faith tradition, those who have taught us that we are eternally loved by our Creator, and that we have strength, We invite the fellowship of all of our elders to witness this day as we stand on their shoulders and thank them and bring their strength and their wisdom into planning our affairs. And we say, Ashe. We invite the four winds to blow upon us healing, refreshing, strength, and new life. And we say, Ashe, it is so, and amen.
Yeah! This is the second time I sung this. It's called Just As Soon As My Feet Strike Zion. I might lose my hat on this one. I think the baby Pentecostal is growing. Just as soon as my feet strike Zion, just as soon as I get there, I'm gonna lay down my heavy burden. I'm gonna sing, I'm gonna shout, I'm gonna say, hallelujah, yeah, just as soon as I get there. Anybody gonna go with me? Just as soon as my feet strike Zion, just as soon as I get there, I'm gonna lay down my heavy burden. I'm gonna shout, trouble's over. I'm gonna sing, hallelujah. Oh, just as soon as I get there. Early one morning, you look for me and I'll be gone. I'm gonna be in my mansion over in the promised land. I'm gonna sing, I'm gonna shout, I'm gonna praise God, I'm gonna let it out. Oh, just as soon as I get there. One of these mornings may not be very long. You're gonna look for Dolores and she'll be gone. I'll be up in my mansion over in the promised land, and I'm gonna shout, trouble's over, and I'm gonna sing, hallelujah. Just as soon as I get there, just as soon as my feet strike Zion, just as soon as I get there.
Hello, it is indeed an honor and a pleasure to participate in the initiation of PAD, the next generation. I want to talk today about how the next generation is called into a Sankofa experience. In the Twi language, Sankofa means go back and get it. It's symbolized by a bird with its feet facing forward and its head looking back. It's about taking what was good from the past and using it to build a powerful and progressive future. I was asked to talk about the history of PAD, and that's really hard to do in a small amount of time. But I do want to give you the short of it, and I want to talk about moving forward and give you some perspectives on how I see it. Within the historic context, what eventually became PAD began as a committee of racism back in 1978. And I had the challenging fortune of being the chair and guiding that effort for many years. It was the dawn of the gay rights movement and the beginning of public acknowledgement of the racism that LGBTQ people of color had been experiencing for generations. MCC was a reflection of the larger society, and uh, even though we had been drawn to MCC churches because of its message of affirmation and God's unconditional love and acceptance, we didn't stay. Once there, we were frequently met with rejection and judgment and subtle discrimination and all that other junk that represented the larger society, the American dream. There was a handful of people of color in the denomination, all through the denomination, and even fewer were in leadership. At the same time, the leadership of MCC at that point was activated and convinced and professed a strong awareness and sensitivity to racial injustice. With the support and the encouragement of the Board of Elders, a number of pastors and leaders in MCC, and throughout the denomination, we worked to grow the Racism Committee into the Department of People of Color, which eventually became PAD. It wasn't an easy task, but it was an incredible time and incredibly satisfying task. The institutional hurdles we had to jump through and over in MCC were the same as those that the country was facing at that time and continue to face today. A few of us who were active in local churches were encouraged to stand with one another, encouraged to work with one another to shepherd the denomination out of the wilderness of racism. We were convinced of God's love, and we believed that we just needed to work together, work together to get the rest of the people to understand. As PAD continued to grow and we continued to grow in love and respect for one another. It was a hard and ugly time at points, but it was also fun and it was blessed by God. Together with a growing number of white allies, we worked to claim our places among the family of God in MCC, and we're proud to walk together under the banner of MCC. I will forever be grateful for this and continue to be encouraged by and proud of the work Pat has done for decades. The Sankofa experience I want to share is that during the early years, our efforts were not about ridding the denomination of racism. I continue to believe that our job is not to destroy racism. Our job as people of color is to survive racist systems and thrive. As we acknowledge Black History Month, it's critical that we go back and get some things, that we go back and get the spirit of survival and unconditional love given to our ancestors as they struggled to survive bigotry and discrimination coming at them from every corner of their lives. It's critical that we go back and get God's gift of grace, God's gift to empower one another and ourselves to live the possibilities and to realize God's vision of even more possibilities and power in our lives, the possibilities we were created to live. We must go back and get integrity so that whenever and whatever we do, we'll be driven by a commitment to truth and to fairness. We must resolve to make the next generation of PAD a movement to uphold and support one another as we struggle to celebrate what makes us different, different from one another, different in the world. PAD was never meant to duplicate the systems that oppressed us in the first place. It was never meant to duplicate hierarchy and lift up one at the expense of the other. Let us go back and get those who look different and live different and talk different and worship different. Let's go back with those who grapple with loving themselves and living their possibilities. Let's go back and empower new leaders to lead from where God has placed them and remind others that God has blessed all of us, that God is proud of all of us. Let's go back and get those who continue to be buried under the weight of rejection and shame and remind them that they are beautiful and powerful and capable, and most of all, remind them that they are worthy. Let's go back and get them. Let's go back and get them and proclaim to them that we are all special in God's eyes. And together we can survive and thrive, regardless of racism, sexism, transphobia, or any of the other monsters that come out to meet us on our journeys. Let's go back and get the memories of how our ancestors survived, prospered, not by fighting racism, but rather by fighting in the midst of racism, fighting to sweep away hopelessness and despair, fighting and working against all odds to pull ourselves and one another up in pride and dignity. Embracing the Sankofa experience challenges us to reach back to what we know to be true rather than allow the lies that have enslaved us to continue to surface in dungeons, in our nightmares, and control our thoughts and direct our actions. As we step into this next generation of path, our great commission is to reach back and grab hold of our possibilities, grab hold of our visions, our power to create life, our power to live as resurrected people. We are commissioned to celebrate one another, to empower one another, and fill each other up with thoughts of hope, fill each other up with encouragement. More than anything, however, our great commission is to go back and get one another and do whatever it takes to convince each other to live radical and outrageously powerful and productive lives, because that is what God placed us here to do. Sankofa is about going back to get what made us alive in the first place. Let this next generation of PAD receive and live the greatest commission of all by embracing the greatest truth of all. God is love, and love is for everyone. Let this next generation of PAD be a generation filled with God's peace, God's power, and God's passion. Have a great, great next generation.
Hi, I'm Lucia, and this is a picture of me in 1976 at General Conference when I was working with Reverend Gary Wilson on the Task Force on Racism report. That week, I was only wearing one hat. More often, I've been wearing two hats. I've been being church or movement or whatever, and a radio journalist at the same time. And that's what I propose to do if you'll help me go to the PAD conference this year. The only difference between the situation for African Americans now in MCC than in 1976 is that we have more people of color in positions of authority. But as we all know, in this post-Obama era, that doesn't necessarily change the underlying tensions. You could even hear at our general conference last year, you could hear the refrain, "Black MCC lives matter." Something's going on. This year's PAD is really going to be pivotal for MCC. And I think it's going to be emblematic of the situation for queer people of color in all PWIs, predominantly white organizations. See, we have a whole new language for talking about these issues now. A new vocabulary. We talk about intersectionalities. We talk about microaggressions, PWIs. A whole new thinking about race and class and gender and power. I'm learning how to apply it. I'm learning how to use it to examine where we are and where we might be going. And I'm very anxious to get to this PAD conference, to be a part of that, and to record that so that we can share it with others. And now, while I was getting all excited about that, I realized that on the way to St. Louis, I could stop off in Abilene and get interviews with Frank Zerilli and Franklin Calvin for our Founders MCC Oral History Project. We have really collected a lot of wonderful stuff so far. In fact, if you're in LA on July 22nd, we're going to be premiering a roundtable that we recorded with a bunch of early MCCers talking about those early days. Frank and Franklin have to be part of this oral history project. Frank is from the early 70s in MCC, his experience as a social justice coordinator in those early times, and of course, the lifetime he spent as Troy's confidential assistant. We've got to get Frank Zerilli's story recorded. Franklin Calvin, his husband, he was in the youth group at MCCLA in the early days. He was in the choir at the height of the gospel choir, along with me. We sang together so often. As an African-American man, he also has another perspective to shed on this whole, what we're going through now. He was one of the coordinators in the early 70s for Black and White Men Together. So he's got some stories to tell that we really need to have part of this project. I don't want to spill the beans, but there are a couple of other MCCers, early MCCers in the St. Louis area, I'm pretty sure, and I might be able to get them recorded. I'm not going to say who because I haven't contacted them yet, but that's another possibility for this project. It's really rich. So, check out my little blurb on this page for more information, and please help me pull this project off, okay? Thank you.
So I'm sitting here listening to all of this and trying to hold back tears because it brings back fond memories for me personally. And I am very clear in this particular moment. The importance of remembering is that it gives us the power and the strength to continue to press forward. And so I'm hoping, as is happening for me in this moment, that we are able to embrace that in a real tangible way. Folks sacrificed to make sure we could be here. And I'm eternally grateful for that. And so I'm committed to be here as long as I can to ensure that others can come after me. Some of you have known me for a long time. I've lost some hair, so I try to help people and try to get them in the saddle. But I'm here just like many others were before us. And now we stand on their shoulders, holding on to their strength and capitalizing on the strength they give us and we can give each other. So we're going to celebrate now everything that's happened before us, and we're going to celebrate now what we know God is doing. So let's celebrate together.
All right, Reverend Vicky, will you tell us briefly how you became involved in Resurrection MCC?
Okay. In 1981, I graduated from high school and I moved to Houston to attend Rice University. And because I was a church every Sunday kind of girl, that's what you did on Sundays, I looked through the Twit, which is This Week in Texas, which is a little gay magazine that was coming out at that time. And I saw that there were a couple of churches that were LGBT affirming. So I thought I would give one of them or two of them a shot and see if there was one that would fit me, and then began attending. So Resurrection was the one that had the biggest ad at that time. So I decided to come to Resurrection first. And like many at that time. You know, I did the circling the block to see if anybody was watching, and before I had got up the nerve to come in, and it took a couple of weeks before that happened. We were back on Decatur at that point. And as you come into the building in the Decatur, there's a side stairway, and as you come in, you can go up to the balcony. And that is what I chose to do for the first couple of times that I came to Resurrection. But what just floored me the first time I walked into an MCC was that there was a woman sitting on the dais. And growing up missionary Baptist, that is not something that you see. Women don't sit on the pulpit. So I watched closely to see exactly what she was doing. Maybe she was helping, I don't know. But then she got up and she began to consecrate communion. And my heart went into my throat, because that is something I had never seen nor thought I would ever see, was a woman consecrating communion. In growing up missionary Baptist, the most that any woman could do would be to prepare the table for the men to come and consecrate with the pastor, and then they would pass it out, because women don't do those things. So to witness a woman consecrating and then sharing communion with the congregation just had a profound impact on me. And at that point, I knew that maybe, just maybe, God, that call that I was hearing from God wasn't just some craziness, and so that there was a possibility that I too could pastor at one point or another.
Yeah. Okay. Well, talk to me a little bit about the role. You spoke about the woman being on the dais, and talk to me about the role of women, specifically in Resurrection, and then across the denomination.
Okay. Well, 1981 was not only the year that I began attending Resurrection, but it was also the year that we had our first case of GRID, and then our second, and our third, and our 1,000th. And we later came to know that GRID is HIV/AIDS. And during the 80s, our congregation was decimated. I would say almost half of our congregation passed during that first 10 years of HIV/AIDS. And because so many of our congregants died during that time, we had funerals, not just one funeral a week, but multiple funerals a week. It was just horrific, the loss that the community felt at that time. But it's because of that women stepped up. They moved into leadership positions. They saw that their siblings, their brothers were dying from this illness, and they began cure networks for our male congregants, and they began to run for the board, and they began to be lay delegates, and answering the call themselves into ordained ministry. I don't believe that without HIV/AIDS impacting MCC the way it did during those early years, that so many women would have ascended to pulpits. Because when I came into MCC, practically, I would probably say 75% of our congregations were still led by white men. And because of the way HIV impacted our congregations, women were being called into the pulpit because they were now available, and the options that our congregations had at that moment. I'm sure that Troy Perry, our founder, loves Nancy, but I am not absolutely certain that without how much MCC was impacted by HIV/AIDS. If Nancy would have been our second moderator, it might have been, another person, another white male would have ascended to the moderatorship. So, yeah.
So not only the impact, I mean, so basically both of those things worked in tandem. I
Yes.
mean, it sort of reminds me of the World War II and Rosie the Riveter, and
Exactly.
and so the women stepped in.
Exactly.
And is that, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
all right,
Yeah. That parallel is accurate. Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. Anything else, particularly that you'd like to say about the devastation of AIDS, or does that kind of paint a pretty good picture?
That paints a pretty good picture. I during that time we had Reverend John Gill and Reverend Carolyn Mobley were here as the staff, and I have no idea how they emotionally made it through all of those deaths at that time. It was crushing. It was crushing to our congregation. I could not even fathom what they felt emotionally during that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you talk about that you came to Houston to attend Rice.
Mhm.
Did you meet anyone particularly at Rice?
One of the first people I actually met at Rice University happened to be Anise Parker, who ended up being Houston's first LGBT mayor. She was the president of the LGBT alum club, and they would always reach out to the undergraduate folk. And actually, she was the first person that actually took me out to a bar that was owned by Marion Coleman called Kindred Spirits. So she was responsible for my first drunk.
Well, what
First
an honor.
and last.
Yeah.
It's like never again.
That's a distinct honor, I'm sure.
Yes.
So, if you could ensure that an LGBTQI person saw this video in the future, 45 years in the future, 145 years in the future, is there something in particular that you would like for them to know?
I would encourage them to remember the marginalized that are within our community, and at this time that happens to be our trans siblings. It was a transgender woman who was the leader of the Stonewall riot, and without her courage and without her tenacity and without her deciding to say no more, we wouldn't have the rights that we have today to marry our partners, to adopt children, to live our lives as almost equal citizens in the U.S. So I would encourage our community to always remember and to always celebrate the beautiful diversity that we are.
Mm-hmm.
And to remember where we came from and who were the first people on the front lines for us. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
You're most welcome.
For sharing today. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right.
I am not black. I mean, that's what the world calls me, but it's not me. I didn't come out of my mother's womb saying, "Hey everybody, I'm black." No, I was taught to be black, and you were taught to call me that, along with whatever you call yourself. It's just a label. See, from birth, the world force feeds us these labels, and eventually we all swallow them. We digest and accept the labels, never ever doubting them. But there's one problem. Labels are not you, and labels are not me. Labels are just labels. But who we truly are is not skin deep. See, when I drive my car, no one would ever confuse the car for me. Well, when I drive my body, why do you confuse me for my body? It's my body. Get it? Not me. Let me break it down. See, our bodies are just cars that we operate and drive around. The dealership we call society decided to label mine the black edition, yours the Irish or white edition. And with no money down, 0% APR, and no test drive, we were forced to own these cars for the rest of our lives. Forgive me, but I fail to see the logic or pride in defining myself or judging another by the cars we drive. Because who we truly are is found inside. Listen, I'm not here to tell you how science has concluded that genetically we're all mixed and race in the human species doesn't exist, or how every historian knows that race was invented in the 15th century to divide people from each other and it has worked perfectly. No, I'm not here to lecture. I just want to ask one question. Who would you be if the world never gave you a label? Never gave you a box to check? Would you be white, black, Mexican, Asian, Native American, Middle Eastern, Indian? No, we would be one. We would be together. No longer living in the era of calling human beings black people or white people. These labels that will forever blind us from seeing a person for who they are, but instead seeing them through the judgmental, prejudicial, artificial filters of who we think they are. And when you let an artificial label define yourself, then my friend, you have chosen smallness over greatness and minimized yourself, confined and divided yourself from others. And it is an undeniable fact that where there is division, there will be conflict, and conflict starts wars. Therefore, every war has started over labels. It's always us versus them. So the answer to war, racism, sexism, and every other ism is so simple that every politician has missed it. It's the labels. We must rip them off. Isn't it funny how no baby is born racist, yet every baby cries when they hear the cries of another, no matter the gender, culture, or color, proving that deep down we were meant to connect and care for each other. That is our mission, and that is not my opinion. That is the truth in a world that has sold us fiction. Please listen, labels only distort our vision, which is why half of those watching this will dismiss it or feel resistance and conflicted. But just remember, so did the caterpillar before it broke through its shell and became the magnificent butterfly. Well, these labels are our shells, and we must do the same thing so we can finally spread our wings. Human beings were not meant to be slapped with labels like groceries and supermarkets. DNA cannot be regulated by the FDA. We were meant to be free, and only until we remove them all and stop living and thinking so small will we be free to see ourselves and each other for who we truly are.
Good evening, beloved saints. My name is Reverend Paul Muketi Heath, and I am connecting with each and every one of you from Sweden. I am blessed and I am honored to be given this opportunity to take part this evening in this ritual. I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the organizers and the planning committee for organizing this amazing service for all of us. I have been asked to share a little bit about how MCC has enriched my life and also my ministry. So I would just like to take you on a little journey just to share a little bit about my childhood and where I come from. I grew up in Soweto, in Johannesburg, in South Africa. And as a little child, I was always involved within the church. So I became an altar boy. And as I grew up in my youth days, I then became a youth leader in the church. Then later I joined the choir. But with all that being said, during my youth days, I realized that I was different. And because of my difference, I battled quite a lot with that because I did not understand what was going on with me. And I didn't have anybody to talk to. I didn't have a place that I could go to. So I struggled and I became depressed, and eventually I even wanted to commit suicide. But later I found out that there was a man by the name of Tsietsi Tandekiso, who is now laid. And Reverend Tsietsi Tandekiso was introduced to me. And he helped me through my journey so that I could be able to understand who I was, and so that I could also accept my sexuality, and then also the battles that I was going through at that time. And Reverend Tsietsi Tandekiso was also the man who has introduced me to MCC. I was the founder member of Hope and Unity MCC, which was the church that I was ministering and pastoring in Johannesburg. And with that being said, I was then ordained within MCC in 1998. And after being ordained, I knew that God wanted me to be in the place that I was. Because before then I had battled with myself, battled with my calling, and also battled with my sexuality. Because I did not understand why God would call me into ministry as a gay man. Because in my mind and in my thoughts, I heard those voices, and I have always heard those negative preachings that, as a gay man, God doesn't love me. But when I came to MCC, I learned that God accepts me for who I am, and God has created me and loved me as I am. And during my ministry, I was able to do such amazing things. While in South Africa, I was one of the people that was involved when the Constitution of South Africa was written. I took part so that I can be able to make sure that the sexual orientation clause was also included in our Constitution. As a church, as a Hope and Unity MCC, we wrote submissions that we could present in Parliament, so to make sure that that clause was included. But also I made sure with other LGBTI activists, we went and targeted all the ministers, and we spoke to them, and we spoke about how important it was for us to see that the sexual orientation clause was also included. When the Marriage Act law was passed in South Africa, HUMCC was the first church that blessed the same-sex union in South Africa. And through my ministry, I also learned that I was HIV positive. And when I learned that I was HIV positive, I battled about it as well. But I was honored, and I had that privilege to have a church that supported me, and to have a church that stood by me. And so I was able to be strong and stand firm, so that I can be able to continue and be a beacon of hope to those that has lost that hope, a beacon of hope to those that had felt that their lives was at the end. So when I learned about my health status, that was the time where I became fully into my ministry. And this is the ministry that I'm also doing at the moment as the coordinator of INARELA, which is the international network of religious leaders that are living positively with HIV. So I am truly blessed to be part of MCC and to be part of a broader church that supports the LGBTI community, its friends, its families, and its allies. So my hope for paired ministry, I pray that this ritual ceremony brings us closer together in love, in faith, and in hope, that we continue to care and support each other regardless, that we see one another as the beloved of Christ, that we are able to open doors to those that are in the margins so that they can also come and celebrate with us at the table.
And I just want to say that, just feeling all of what has happened today and to realize that it's some small part I've been a part of this, you know. As a young man, I met Reverend Freedom when I was 13 here in Sacramento. And our lives end up intertwining again later on when I was 18 and my mother came out to my mom and told her that, I was gay and my mom was part of the Church of God in Christ. She disowned me. And I didn't know that at that time that Reverend Frida would become a mother to me in a lot of ways. And some years later, I found myself incarcerated. But even before I got incarcerated, Mother Smith, Frida Smith, she had me out going to all the homes for those that are sick and dying with the HIV. And I didn't know that that would be part of my work, even when I was incarcerated with those that were sick and dying and those in the margins through MCC. Through Reverend Frida Smith. She saw something in me and would send me and another friend of mine, Kelly Ferens, we would go to all these homes and spend time with the sick and the dying. And then to find myself incarcerated, and I was way out in the country, in jail. And I didn't think that Frida Smith would come and see me, not somebody like me, not somebody of her stature, not of this huge church. She came herself, came out, wasn't even visiting. She just came out. You know how Frida is. She came out, and I don't know how she got in, but she got in. And she told me something I'll never forget. She said, guilty or innocent, you'll always be my child. And to have that, to go to prison with and spend time incarcerated and help all the people that I was able to help through MCC as a young person. And then to see, once I got out, she was the first one I met in 2005. And she just poured into me and she said, Anthony, God's got even greater things for you. And I said, there's no way anything can be greater than me. That God could have something for me, and to have Frida just guide me and always be there for me, anything I needed. And some years later, my mom ended up passing away, and Reverend Frida was one of the people that helped me get into seminary so that I could become a minister. Just again and again. And I didn't know that my ministry was leading to me being there for her once she passed away. I was one of the few people. I got word that she had passed away, and I don't know why or how I did it, but I just got in my car and drove out, and I was able to just be with her as she's passed away, and I was able to be with her. And I knew then that this is what I was called to do, to be doing chaplaincy work, to be there for folks that are in the sick and the dying. And it was through Reverend Frida's ministry. And I can say that from her. Look, 17 years later, now I'm out. I've been out of prison for 17 years, you know, and I've never been back. I've never had any issues because of what she did. And now that I'm part of this group called PAD, is letting me know that as an African American young man, I have something to give as well. And I'm encouraging other folks there. I've talked to other folks that have been incarcerated and other folks in the margins. And I've asked, and they've said, well, why should I go back? You know, after the pandemic, a lot of us young folks haven't been in church now almost 3 years. I said, come on back to the church. We have PAD, we have organizations that are for you, young Black men. You know, and I told young, I'm not always nice, you know, I don't always speak like a pastor, but I said, I don't want to see you laying in the side of the street because of what some police did to you. I want you to come and see what we have available to you. Even if you just come on Zoom for a little while, we have something here for you as young folks. So my heart for PAD and my heart for this is that we continue to just living in these visions of all these people we talked about. It was just bringing tears to my eyes when I was looking at Rev Vicky, a dear friend of mine, just looking at her today. But I couldn't do what I do if it wasn't for her and for all those other people. I couldn't come out here in the streets of Sacramento and talk to the people like I do and do the funerals for those that are in the margins. They can't even pay me, some folks, but I'm willing to do those funerals. I'm willing to be there for those families because somebody was there for me. They used to laugh at me and call me bum. They called me names when I was in prison because I would hang around all the people that, you know, that are crazy. That's what people would say. They're crazy. They know, but I saw something in them. And I think that when I was going to them, it's because somebody was pouring into me. And then at the right time, God released me to do what it is that I'm doing now, ministering to everybody in the margins. So my remembrance today is, let's remember those, but let's encourage our young people to give them some hope, to hope again. That's my prayer for PAD. That's my prayer for other young African-American Black men like me, that we do have hope. There is a place for us, be it a church for all, be wherever it may be. And I was just telling somebody not too long ago that you can call me night and day. I want to be there for you. And I didn't know that my ministry would be so wrapped and intertwined with suicide until I started doing my work around AIDS and HIV and those working in the ministry, because I was one of those ones that tried to take my life. Now today I'm sitting here and I'm able to encourage other young people. So today that's my remembrance. Thank you.
Wow, 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 wow. That's about all I can say for this segment, but I won't leave it there. You know, I can't do that. We are a resilient and strong people, and we have lots to offer, not only one another, but we have lots to offer the world. That includes MCC. And so as I'm listening to what I'm hearing and receiving it in really deep ways, I'm very clear that now is the time for the next generation to be able to come and step up to the plate. When I came into MCC, I had just turned 21, and I've been here ever since. But I'm very clear that it's time for the next generation to come. And I will continue to be here, Anthony, to cheer you on, to encourage you, to remind you that now is your time. I believe in divine appointments, and this is your divine appointment. So we're going to go into a segment now where I think you're going to hear it in a deeper way, because at some point we have to really ask ourselves the question, what will I do now? What can I offer now that will make a difference, not only in MCC, but will make a difference in somebody else's life? So we're going to spend some time thinking about, reflecting on, and pondering the meaning of what it means to be commissioned and committed to do this work in MCC. Let's take a journey.
Jay, why don't you start playing that a little bit? So this morning, well, you know, for all these years, I've thought back on that. Ain't it odd what some people hang on? I'm 55, I was probably 26 or 27. And all of a sudden, the words changed. Don't give me that old time religion. Don't give me that old time religion. Don't give me that old time religion. It ain't good enough for me. It ain't good enough for the children. It ain't good enough for the children. It ain't good enough for the children. It ain't good enough for me. It will keep you down in the closet. It will keep you locked in the closet. It will keep you locked in the closet. It ain't good enough for me. It will make you hate all the Christians. It will make you hate all the Christians. It will make you hate all the Christians. It ain't good enough for me. It will cause you to hate your children. It will cause you to hate your children. It will cause you to hate your children. It ain't good enough for me. It will stop you from seeing the rainbows. It will stop you seeing the rainbows. It'll stop you seeing the rainbows. It ain't good enough for me. Don't give me that old time religion. Don't give me that old time religion. Don't give it. Not that old time religion. It's not good enough. I'm gonna be bold about it. It's not good enough for you or me. Jay, why don't you start playing that a little bit?
Hey friends, I do hope this finds you all well and in good spirits. My name is Asati Nu, and I'm so grateful to be joining you all for this wonderful event. I'm going to do an original song for you, and it talks about the healing power of water. But as I think about it, I also know that we can be water to each other in the ways of love, in the ways of hope, in the ways of peace, in the ways of healing. I hope you enjoy it. Ooh, hey, oh, yeah, 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 yeah. Ooh, I woke up this morning feeling kinda down. Couldn't find my feet, oh, to place them on the ground. Oh, but there's a place I love to go. There's something in the water with healing powers I know. Oh, I found love, oh, in the water. Oh, I found hope, yeah, yeah, in the water. I found my joy, yeah, yeah, in the water. I found my soul in the water. I can take my burdens there. I know I can lay them down. No matter what I'm going through, I know I can come to you. You give my soul a resting place with friends who run this race. This I call home, yeah, yeah, my sacred space. Oh, I found love in the water. Don't you know I found hope? Yeah, yeah, in the water. I found my joy, oh, in the water. I found my soul, oh, in the water. Oh, in the water. I found love. Don't you know I found peace? Don't you know I found hope? Don't you know I found happiness? I found healing. Oh, I found healing. Hey, in the water. Oh, in the water. Oh, yeah, in the water. Oh, in the water. I found love. I found my healing. Oh, in the water. Yeah, yeah, in the water. In the water. Oh, in the water. Oh, I found my soul in the water. Oh, I found my soul in the water. Yes, I found my soul. Oh, in the water.
Greetings and blessings to you all. My name is Kedrick Brown, and I'm here at Resurrection MCC in Houston, Texas. And I apologize for my tardiness. I had some technical challenges, but I am here and God is still able. I was asked to talk about what I feel about the future of people of African descent, or PAD here with MCC could be. And the one thing I could come up with is to start or to continue to show up in the places that we may not think we fit in. Oftentimes in my life, and this is just a personal testimony, where I am typically the only person of color in the room. I'm also probably the only person that is seen as of African descent in the room. And being in religious times in these current times, there's still a challenge of having people who identify as LGBT of color in the room. And what I'm grateful for with MCC is that we have been given a platform to work within that. And if we don't start showing up and being present authentically as ourselves, we cannot make the change that we need to see in the world today. And so if we continue to start being in those places and being present, being inclusive, being open-hearted, being firm in those things, we will not be visible. It's already been a struggle long enough for us to be present as people of color. So why not change the narrative? So if we continue to show up in those places, who we are, authentically as who we are, I believe that we can continue to be the change that we must see in the world today. I'm not sure how long I was going to have to say to that, but that is your short little sermon for today if you hadn't had one. So continue to be blessed, continue to be focused, and continue to be loved. God bless you.
Hello everyone, I'm Reverend Elder Cecilia Eggleston, moderator of Metropolitan Community Churches, and I'm so delighted to be greeting you on this auspicious occasion. I bring greetings from the Council of Elders, the Governing Board, and the MCC staff to all of you in PAD, the Next Generation. This is such a pivotal moment in the history of this proud community within MCC, and I'm really honoured to be asked to say a few words at this time. My hope for people of African descent, the next generation, is that you will become a truly global network. There are people of African descent in the diaspora all over the world, and of course there are our siblings in Africa. And I truly hope that this strong network will be created where you are supporting and resourcing and encouraging each other, and that as part of that you are also helping MCC to become a better place, to become more diverse, more inclusive, and more racially equitable, because that's what we all want. And partnering together to make that happen is really important. And you know from your own experiences that sometimes being the only person of African descent in a congregation, or even in a congregation where there are many and yet your voice somehow cannot be heard. This is such an important part of the PAD ministry, to support the individual, to have strength in sharing your experiences, to support and strengthen each other, to share your resilience. And I think that's just such an important part of the work that PAD can do. I'm passionate about building up a new generation of leaders. And you are the next generation. So who's the next generation after you? How can we work together so that we find those leaders, that we mentor them, we build them up, we give them what they need? Because if we want to have leadership at a denominational level in our local churches that is diverse, that reflects all the voices that there are in MCC, then PAD is going to play a vital role in creating that group of leaders who can move forward, who can serve at local and denominational level. The Commission on Pathways of Healing and Reconciliation has as one of its aims to have a critical mass of people of colour in leadership. And so PAD is such an important part of that work to make sure that we do have the rich diversity that MCC needs, and that all the talents and giftedness of all people in MCC is appreciated and is utilised in the full way. And as well as all of those things, PAD needs to be a strong voice within MCC. We know we can do better around racial equity. We know we can do better around diversity and inclusion. And PAD is going to be so key in giving a strong voice to the issues that we need to look at, to the organisational changes that we need to make. And I hope that you will be a partner with me, with the Governing Board, the Council of Elders, with the MCC staff, to work together to make a difference, and that you will tell me and tell others what success needs to look like, so that we truly are the racially equitable, the diverse, the socially just organisation that I believe God is calling us to be. So thank you for everything that you have done to get us to this place. Thank you to all of those who have come before those of us who are gathered here today, because we are standing on the shoulders of giants, those who paved a way, those who were tenacious and kept going in the against all odds. And we're grateful to them and to their ministry. And I am so excited to see what this next step will be for all of us going forward together. And any way that I can serve you as the moderator, I'm happy to do so. So thank you and God bless.
We have come a long way. Okay, well, I'm not going to wait for the picture to change. We have come a long way. We have remembered the past and the power of the past. We have celebrated where we are now in this place and this time, and the transitions that we're going through in this moment to prepare us for the next steps. And now we are doing just that, anticipating the next steps. You know, what's funny is that as much as we want it to be, this is not the end of the road for us. And the same was true for Jesus's disciples, who came together in the place with Jesus in for a dinner, thinking that they were just all getting together as usual. And not understanding that there was going to be a dramatic change happening around them and even within them. Like the disciples, we too will need a power greater than ourselves to get to the next level, that there is change happening all around us right now. There's change happening in our government and the nations amidst that we are in the midst of. There's wars and rumors of wars. There are challenges that we're all experiencing in some way or another. Internally, we're going through our own individual changes, dealing with pandemics and job changes and all of the new things that are sort of presenting themselves as opportunities and threats. We need a power greater than ourselves, a power that can inspire us and equip us and help us to move forward. We need a power that will allow us to not only deal with the external issues related to social injustices, but the internal things that cause us to continue to replicate over and over again the healing, the need for healing, the need for peace, the need for hope. Jesus understood that about his disciples, and he established the new thing in that moment at dinner with these disciples. And so he took the bread and he broke it and he gave them a piece. And he said, "Take, eat. This is my body, which is broken for you. This do in remembrance of me." And then he took a cup of wine and he said, "This is my blood, and it represents the new covenant that I have with you, a new promise, a new future, a new hope, a hope that says that embedded within you are all the powers, all the joy, all the love, all the peace, all the miracles that are possible in relationship with me. This will be yours. This will be yours." And so he asked them to drink it. And so we at MCC, we do this because we understand that there is a new covenant, that there is a new power that is within us. There is a new way of us standing together, facing adversity, dealing with challenges, knowing that the power within us is greater than the power external to us. Understanding that our relationship with God is that which holds us, that which directs us, that which orders our path, that which keeps us in alignment, not only with God, but also with each other and in ourselves. And so we thank God for this opportunity to be in this place in this time. We thank God for giving his son for us and allowing us to be a part of an ever-changing world that is transformed by the presence of people like us. And so I'm going to turn it over to Reverend Paul for our closing prayer and our blessing.
Let us pray. Nkosi bheka ibandla lakho, uyabona selomile limathise ngomsa wakho, konke kwethu kuphelile. Thela umoya oyingcwele phezu kwabantwana bakho, vuso wakho umsebenzi libajazwe igama lakho. Nkulunkulu Baba, sithanda ukukubonga kulesi sikhathi samanje, sikunikeza udumo. Sithi akekho omunye onjengawe. Sithi wena Nkosi yami ungu-Alpha nongu-Omega ezimpilweni zethu. Sibonga ke Nkosi yami ukuthi uye wasinikeza lo msebenzi wosuku lanamhlanje ukuthi sihlanganye sisonke umhlaba wonke jikelele, ukuthi sizozwa izwi lakho nokuthi sizozwa wena ukhulumisana nathi ezimpilweni zethu. Sithi akekho njengawe Nkosi yami engcwele. Sibonga wena Nkosi yami ngoba wena uphakeme. Sithi wena Nkosi yami thela umoya wakho engcwele phezu kwabantwana bakho, bese uyasibusisa ngamunye ngamunye, usinikeze inkazimulo evela kuwena ezulwini. Sibonga amandla akho ayingcwele Nkosi yami. Sithi wena Nkosi yami phinde usiphakamise, usigcwalise ngomoya wakho engcwele, usinikeze Nkosi yami amandla okukhona ukuthi siqhubeke siyenze umsebenzi wakho. Sibonga wena Nkosi yami konke lokhu ngegama elikhulu lomfelo wethu Jesu Kristu, amen.
Wow. Wow. Just wow. If you were in church at some point today, I think we've just had church again, and that's not a bad thing at all. I overwhelmed is a good word, but excited is also a good word about what's coming our direction in terms of the next generation. I think we've heard that 2 or 3 times in the course of our last hour and 10 minutes. Next generation, next generation, next generation. And the promise is, as the next generation steps up to the plate, you're not alone. We're still here. We'll journey with you. We'll coach you if necessary. We'll definitely pray for you, because we know God is not done with any of us yet. And I am more than convinced God is not done with MCC. So now is the time. So after this time of remembering and celebrating, after this time of really pondering what's my next in MCC, I hope you'll sit with that question for some time and really try to discern where God may be calling you to step up and to be a part of this global ministry. I have been in many places in my life, but this is one opportunity today I'm glad I did not miss, because I will never be the same as a result of it. So on behalf of the planning team, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy Sunday to come and be with us. I do hope, and we do hope, that you're leaving with a little bit more than what you came with. That's always our ardent prayer. And we're also going to ask, if you have time, after the closing benediction, we're going to be leaving the room open for a few minutes just to connect with one another, see how we're doing, and just have a time of fellowship. And so we want that to happen with you. And so we encourage you to stick around for a little bit. And I want to ask you, if you have the time, please take the time to do some evaluating about this experience, about how it touched your life, how it may have changed your life, or what we could have added to it to make it a more deeper experience. We need that, we want that, and so we invite you to participate in that way. So on behalf of all of us, Pad the Next Generation has officially been launched. You are part of the next generation, and we can conquer a lot if we can do it together. It's my prayer for you, my prayer for me, my prayer for us is that we will come together and simply say yes, be yielded, empty, and still to get on with ministry. God bless you. Hope you'll hang around for a bit after the benediction.